Admiral Hyatt stood on the bridge of the UE's Indomitable, staring at the endless darkness beyond the viewing screen. The ship was massive, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, with weapons that could crack a moon in half. It drifted silently through the Kuiper Belt, the frozen edge of humanity's solar system. Out here, nothing ever happened. That was the point. Earth had been alone for 300 years, ever since the galaxy decided humans were too primitive to join their club. The Admiral was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 40 years in space, watching the stars, waiting for something that might never come. His uniform was dark blue, marked with ribbons that told stories of battles fought only in simulations. Humanity had built an enormous military, but they had never used it. Not yet. Captain Gina worked at her station below, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. She was younger than the Admiral, sharp-minded and quick with numbers. Her job was to watch for threats, to calculate dangers before they arrived. Today, her screens were quiet. Just asteroids and ice, the same as always. Another boring day in paradise, she muttered, not looking up from her work. The Admiral almost smiled. Boring is good, Captain. Boring means we're still alive. Then everything changed. The alarm shrieked through the bridge. Red lights flashed. Every officer snapped to attention as their instruments went crazy with warnings. Gina's eyes went wide as she stared at her screen. Admiral, we have a hyperspace emergence. Multiple contacts. Very close. How many? Hyan moved to her station, his heart suddenly pounding. Counting now, sir. 10, 50, 200. Her voice rose higher. Admiral, I'm reading over 10,000 ships. The viewing screen switched automatically to show the impossible sight. Space was tearing open like fabric being ripped apart. Ships poured through the wound in reality. Thousands of them, each one different from the last. They were alien vessels, that much was clear. Their designs were elegant, curved and flowing like sculptures. Some were small, barely larger than human fighters. Others were massive, the size of cities, but they all looked damaged. Burn marks covered their hulls. Some were venting atmosphere into space. A few were breaking apart even as they emerged, their crews abandoning them in small escape pods. They're refugees, Dr. Taiyang said from his station at the back of the bridge. He was the ship's lead scientist, responsible for understanding alien life. His voice was soft, almost sad. Look at them. They're running from something. The communications officer, a young woman named Hana, raised her hand. Sir, I'm receiving distress signals. Thousands of them. They're broadcasting in 17 different languages. Can you translate? The Admiral asked. The computer is working on it now, sir. Wait. I have something. The main signal is in Valari. That's a language in our database. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge, deep and resonant, speaking words that the computer turned into Korean. This is Fleet Commander Thelanorus of the Valari Empire. We are requesting emergency sanctuary. The Devourers have broken through the Sagittarius armed defenses. 7 worlds have fallen. Nowhere in known space is safe. We need shelter, fuel, and time to plan our next escape. Gina looked at the Admiral. Sir, the Valari are part of the collective. They're one of the 17 species that rejected Earth's membership application. I remember, Hyan said quietly. 300 years ago, humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel and reached out to the galaxy, hoping to join the community of spacefaring civilizations. The collective had tested them, studied them, and then delivered their verdict. Humanity was too violent, too primitive, too dangerous. Earth was quarantined, left alone to either evolve or destroy itself. The Valari had been among the loudest, voices calling for humanity's rejection. They were a proud species, warriors who had conquered 6 star systems through military might. They had called humans barely civilized apes from a death world. Now they were here, begging for help. Should we respond, sir? Hana asked. The Admiral thought for a moment. Every instinct told him to be cautious. These were not friends. But they were also not enemies, not anymore. They were desperate people running from something terrible. Open a channel. Let me speak to their commander. The viewing screen changed to show the interior of an alien ship. The creature sitting in the command chair was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. Its eyes were large and golden, and they looked exhausted. I am Admiral Hyan of the United Earth Space Command. You are in human territory. The alien's eyes widened in what might have been shock or horror. Humans? This is the Sol System? The primitive world? That would be us, Hyan said calmly. You seem surprised. Our navigation systems failed. We jumped blind, hoping to escape. I did not realize we had fled to. The alien paused, searching for words. Your system is quarantined. Your species is restricted. We cannot be here. And yet, here you are. 10,000 ships, most of them damaged. You mentioned something called the Devourers. What are they? The alien commander looked away, and Hyan realized the creature was afraid. Deeply, terribly afraid. They are extinction. They appeared 50 years ago at the Galactic Rim. At first, we thought they were a natural phenomenon, some kind of spaceborne predators. But they are more than that. They consume everything. Planets, ships, entire civilizations. They break down matter and absorb it. They learn from what they eat. Every species they destroy makes them smarter, stronger. Dr. Taiyang stepped forward. How many species have they consumed? 6 confirmed extinctions. Another 4 are under attack. The collective's combined fleets cannot stop them. We tried. We failed. So we ran. We all ran. Gina was working her controls, pulling up star charts and tactical data. Admiral, I'm detecting unusual readings from beyond the Kuiper Belt. Long-range sensors are picking up something strange. Mass readings that shouldn't be there. Show me. The screen filled with sensor data, raw numbers, and probability calculations. Gina's face went pale as she read the results. Sir, there's something following them. Something big. Multiple large mass signatures moving at high speed toward our system. They're still far away, but if they maintain current speed, she did quick calculations. They'll be here in 72 hours. The alien commander's face showed something that looked like despair. They followed us. Of course they followed us. They always followed the food. Admiral Hyan felt his jaw tighten. The galaxy had abandoned humanity 300 years ago. They had left Earth alone, dismissed them as primitives not worth their time. Now, those same civilizations were bringing their war to humanity's doorstep. He looked at Captain Gina, then at Dr. Taiyang, then at the rest of his crew. They were waiting for his orders. Beyond his ship, thousands of alien refugees drifted helplessly in space. And somewhere out there, beyond the edge of detection, something terrible was coming to Earth. Send a message to Earth Command, Hyan said quietly. Tell them we have visitors. Tell them we're about to have more. He turned back to the alien commander on the screen. Fleet Commander Thelanorus, welcome to humanity's home. I hope you're ready to see what primitives can do when pushed to the edge. 24 hours had passed since the Valari fleet arrived. The refugees now sat in a loose formation near Jupiter's orbit, their ships powered down to conserve energy. They had nowhere else to go, and they knew it. Meanwhile, on Earth, every government was in emergency session. Every military base was on full alert. Humanity had prepared for this moment for 3 centuries. but nobody had expected it to come like this. General Minho sat in the command center beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing every ship in the solar system. He was a hard man with cold eyes and a reputation for making difficult decisions without hesitation. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 20 years ago, the last real combat any human had seen. Now he was staring at a threat that made that conflict look like a playground fight. What do we know about these devourers? He asked. Dr. Taiyang stood before the War Council, displaying images captured from Valari databanks. The pictures showed creatures that seemed impossible, beings that looked like nightmares given form. Their ships were organic, grown rather than built, covered in what looked like armor plating made from bone and chitin. They're silicon-based life forms, Taiyang explained. Unlike us, they don't need carbon or water to survive. They can exist in the vacuum of space without protection. They consume organic matter and use it to build more of themselves. Every planet they attack becomes raw material for their expansion. Ambassador Sora, a dignified woman with sharp features, studied the images with disgust. Can they be reasoned with? Have they ever communicated? Once, Taiyang said. 50 years ago, when they first appeared. They sent a single message to the collective. We are hunger. We will feed. Since then, nothing but silence. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They just consume. General Minho looked at the tactical displays. Their fleet will arrive in 48 hours. How many are we facing? Captain Gina's voice came through the communication system from the Indomitable. Our scans show approximately 50,000 individual units. Most are what the Valari call war forms, creatures the size of frigates. They're fast, heavily armed, and incredibly tough. There are also about 200 capital ships, each one the size of a small moon. The room fell silent. 50,000. The number seemed impossible. How many ships can we field? Ambassador Sora asked quietly. Every combat-ready vessel in the solar system, Minho said. That gives us 40,000 ships. But numbers don't tell the whole story. He activated another display, showing humanity's defensive network. What appeared shocked even the experienced officers in the room. Mars wasn't just a colony. It was a fortress world with 200 million trained soldiers. The asteroid belt wasn't just rocks floating in space. Thousands of those asteroids were hollowed out and filled with weapons platforms. Every civilian station around Earth, Venus, and the outer planets had military-grade shields and gun batteries hidden in their structures. We've spent 300 years preparing for the day someone attacked Earth, Minho said. The collective thought they were protecting the galaxy by isolating us. Instead, they gave us time to build the largest military force in human history. On the screen, Engineer Yuna appeared from the Mars shipyards. She was a small woman with oil stains on her uniform and fire in her eyes. General, the new dreadnoughts are ready. All 60 of them. We finished the last one this morning. Good. Deploy them to the outer defensive line. How are the special weapons? Ready for testing. Though, I still think you're all insane for building them. Minho smiled coldly. Sanity is for peacetime, engineer. The meeting continued for hours, each officer reporting on their section's readiness. Ammunition counts, fuel reserves, personnel rotations, medical supplies. War was more than just fighting. It was logistics and planning and preparation. Humanity had learned that lesson well over thousands of years of conflict on Earth. Finally, Ambassador Sora brought up the question everyone was avoiding. What about the Valari? Do we help them fight, or do we tell them to leave? They can't leave, Taiyang said. Their ships are barely functional. Most have no fuel left. Some are losing life support. If we throw them out, they'll die within days. They wouldn't have helped us, someone muttered. My NHO raised his hand for silence. 300 years ago, the Valari called us primitives. They said we were too violent to join civilized space. Now they're sitting in our territory, waiting to see if we'll save them or abandon them like they abandoned us. This is our chance to show them exactly what kind of species we are. And what kind is that? Sora asked. The kind that survives. While Earth's leaders argued strategy, Fleet Commander Thelanaris was getting a tour of a human ship. Admiral Hyon had invited him aboard the Indomitable, partly for diplomatic reasons and partly because the human commander wanted to see the aliens' reaction to human technology. The Valari moved through the corridors, with his forearms held close to his body, his golden eyes taking in everything. Human crew members passed by, saluting the Admiral, but otherwise ignoring their alien guest. That bothered Thelanaris. He was used to fear and respect from other species. These humans just looked at him and went back to work. Your ship is unusual, the alien said carefully. How so? Hyon asked, genuinely curious. The power readings are wrong. Your reactor puts out energy levels that should be impossible for a vessel this size. The heat alone should melt your hull. Yet everything functions normally. They stopped at a window overlooking the main engine room. Massive machinery hummed with barely contained power, glowing with intense blue light. Human engineers worked calmly around equipment that made the alien skin crawl with fear. We learned to work with high-energy systems, Hyon explained. Earth's sun is unusually active. Our planet has intense radiation and a strong magnetic field. We evolved in an environment that would kill most galactic species. When we built our first ships, we didn't know we were supposed to be afraid of fusion reactors. We just built them because they worked. Thelanaris touched the window with one hand, feeling the vibration of power. This is madness. Your entire ship is a bomb waiting to explode. Only if you don't know what you're doing. We do. They continued the tour, visiting the weapons bay, medical center, and crew quarters. Everywhere, the aliens saw the same pattern. Humans working with technology that seemed too dangerous, too powerful, too risky. Yet they handled it all with casual confidence. Finally, they reached the tactical center where Captain Gina was coordinating the defense plans. She looked up as they entered. Admiral, we just received new data from our deep space probes. The Devourer fleet is definitely following the refugee trail. They'll arrive exactly where we predicted, coming in from the direction of Jupiter. Show our guest the defensive plan, Hyon said. Gina brought up a three-dimensional display of the solar system. It showed human ships positioned in layers, creating kill zones and fallback positions. The Valari studied it with professional interest. Your tactics are sound, but your numbers are insufficient. You have 40,000 ships. They have 50,000, and each of theirs is stronger than yours. You will lose. Gina smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Commander, you're counting wrong. You're counting ships. We count weapons. She zoomed in on the asteroid belt, highlighting thousands of small objects. Each of these is a railgun platform. They look like asteroids, but they're actually weapons capable of firing projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The display shifted to Mars, our fortress world. 200 million soldiers trained for space combat. Every city can launch fighters. Every factory can produce ammunition. Then Earth itself, our homeworld. Population, 15 billion. Every single one has been through basic military training. Every civilian station is a disguised weapons platform. Every satellite can be turned into a kinetic missile. Thelanaris stared at the display, his golden eyes wide with disbelief. Your entire civilization is militarized. This level of preparation, it's not normal. It's not healthy. Admiral Hyon's voice was quiet but firm. Commander, every predator on our planet tried to kill our ancestors. Our own world tried to kill us with diseases, storms, earthquakes, and volcanoes. When we finally reached space, the galaxy rejected us, left us alone with the message that we weren't good enough. So we learned. We adapted. We became very, very good at surviving. And now you're about to see exactly what that means. The alarm sounded again. Everyone turned to the main display. The sensors were showing new contacts at the edge of the solar system. Massive readings, hundreds of them, moving fast. The Devourers had arrived early. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a disease spreading through healthy tissue. Their ships were grotesque, organic things that pulsed and writhed as they moved. Some looked like giant insects with too many legs. Others resembled sea creatures from humanity's deepest oceans, all tentacles and teeth. The largest ones were simply masses of flesh and bone, held together by purposes humans couldn't understand. Captain Saijan watched them appear on his sensors from the bridge of the Phantom, a stealth destroyer that was currently hiding in the shadow of one of Jupiter's moons. His ship was small and fast, painted black and designed to be nearly invisible. He had 12 more ships like it, all waiting in the darkness, watching. "Count them," he ordered his crew. The tactical officer, a young man named Bong, worked his controls carefully. "I'm reading." "Sir, this is impossible. There's more than we thought. I'm counting 70,000 warforms, not 50. And 300 capital ships." Siajin felt his stomach tighten. The intelligence had been wrong. The enemy was stronger than expected. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. "This is Phantom. Confirming enemy numbers. They brought more than predicted. Much more." General Minho's voice came back immediately. "Understood, Captain. Stay hidden. Wait for the signal." "Yes, sir." Siajin cut the connection and looked at his crew. They were all volunteers, all people who had trained for years for a mission like this. They knew the risks. They knew they might not survive the next few hours. But not one of them looked afraid. That was the thing about humans, he thought. They were terrified, every single one of them. But they did their jobs anyway. On Mars, Lieutenant Nari was running final checks on her fighter. It was a small craft, barely large enough for one person, but it was fast and deadly. She was the leader of Valkyrie Squadron, 36 pilots who had trained together for 10 years. They were the best of the best, and today they would prove it. "All wings, report status," she said into her helmet com. One by one, her pilots checked in. Everyone was ready. Their fighters were loaded with weapons that the Valari refugees had never seen before. Weapons that Earth scientists had been developing in secret in the hangar around her. Thousands of other fighters were launching. Mars alone was putting 15,000 small craft into space. Earth was sending 20,000 more. The Jupiter and Saturn stations were adding another 10,000. It was the largest fighter deployment in human history. "Launch in 5 minutes, Control announced. "All pilots, good luck." Nari closed her eyes for a moment, saying a quick prayer to gods she wasn't sure she believed in. Then she opened them and focused on her instruments. Time to work. Deep in the asteroid belt, the hidden weapons platforms were activating. They had been waiting here for 200 years, disguised as ordinary rocks, maintained by automated systems and occasional visits from engineers. Now their time had come. Engineer Yuna watched from a command station on Ceres as thousands of fake asteroids revealed their true nature. Panels slid open, showing massive railgun barrels. Power systems that had been dormant for decades roared to life. Targeting computers began calculating firing solutions for enemies that were still millions of kilometers away. "All platforms reporting green," her assistant said. "We're ready." Yuna pulled up the schematics on her screen, studying the weapon she had spent 15 years perfecting. The railguns could fire solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. Each shot carried enough kinetic energy to punch through a small moon. And there were 5,000 platforms, each capable of firing one shot every 30 seconds. Mathematics is beautiful, she muttered to herself. 5,000 guns, 120 shots per hour per gun. That's 600,000 rounds we can put down range before they even reach Mars orbit. Her assistant looked at her nervously. Ma'am, what if it's not enough? Then we use the backup plan. And the backup plan after that. We have 12 layers of defense. If they get through all of them, she paused. If they get through all of them, then they deserve to win. But they won't. On Earth, Dr. Taiyang was in his laboratory, studying samples of organic material that the Valari had provided. They were fragments from Devourer war forms, pieces collected from battlefields. Under his microscope, the cells looked wrong. They were silicon-based, yes, but they also contained traces of carbon compounds. Organic material from the species they had consumed. They really do absorb what they eat, he said to his assistant. Look at this. These cells contain genetic information from at least 3 different species. The Devourers aren't just eating civilizations. They're incorporating them, learning from them. His assistant, a young scientist named Haru, looked worried. Doctor, if they can learn from the species they consume and they've already eaten 6 civilizations, then they know everything those species knew, including how to fight. Taiyang sat back, thinking hard. Which means conventional tactics won't work. They've seen every standard military strategy the collective uses. They'll know how to counter them. But they've never fought humans before. Exactly. That's our only advantage. We're the unknown variable. He pulled up another screen, showing analysis of the Devourer biology. They're strong, fast, and adaptable. But they have weaknesses. They don't handle extreme temperatures well. Too hot or too cold, and their cellular structure breaks down. And their organic ships, while tough, are still vulnerable to certain types of radiation. He started writing notes, calculations flowing across his screen. Get this information to General Minho. Tell him I have ideas. In space, Admiral Hyan was coordinating the final defensive positions. His fleet of dreadnoughts formed the backbone of humanity's defense, huge ships bristling with weapons. But they were also the bait, the obvious target that would draw the enemy's attention. Fleet Commander Thelanaris stood on the bridge beside him, watching the preparations with growing disbelief. The alien had seen many battles in his long life, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just preparing to defend. They were preparing to attack. You're positioning your largest ships in front, the Valari said. That makes them the first target. The Devourers will focus all their firepower on them. Your dreadnoughts will be destroyed in the first wave. That's what they'll think, Hyan agreed calmly. You're using them as bait? I'm using them as a hammer. But every good hammer needs an anvil. Captain Gina zoomed in on the tactical display, showing the area between Jupiter and Mars where the battle would take place. The Devourers think in simple terms. Find food, consume food, move to next food source. They've done this to 6 species already. They've developed patterns, habits. They always attack the largest military presence first, trying to eliminate resistance quickly. So they'll target our dreadnoughts, Thelanaris said. Yes, and while they're focused on the big obvious targets, our real weapons will hit them from angles they don't expect. Gina smiled. Humans invented ambush tactics 50,000 years ago, Commander. We've had a long time to perfect them. Across all communication channels, General Minho's voice came through, speaking to every human ship, every station, every soldier preparing for battle. This is General Minho to all forces. 300 years ago, the galaxy told us we weren't good enough. They called us primitive. They said we were too violent, too dangerous to join their civilization. Today, they brought their war to our home. Today, they'll learn that we weren't rejected because we were weak. We were rejected because we were terrifying. All ships, all stations, all personnel, weapons free. Show them what humans do to those who threaten Earth. Show them why our planet is called a death world. Make them understand that they made a mistake coming here. Let's go to work. Throughout the solar system, millions of humans prepared for battle. Fighter pilots checked their weapons. Gunners loaded railguns. Engineers monitored power levels. Doctors prepared surgical bays. Everyone had a job. Everyone had been trained. Everyone knew that the next few hours would decide whether humanity survived or joined the other 6 extinct species. The Devourer fleet continued its approach, moving steadily inward from the outer system. They had never been stopped before. They had consumed 6 civilizations without significant resistance. They saw the human ships ahead of them and registered them as nothing more than another source of biomass to absorb. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Admiral Hyan looked at the countdown timer on his screen. 30 minutes until the enemy entered weapons range. He thought about Earth, about the 15 billion people living on that blue and green world. He thought about the colonies on Mars and Venus, about the stations throughout the system. He thought about 300 years of isolation, of preparation, of becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. All ships, he said quietly, stand by. Wait for my signal. And remember, we don't fight for the galaxy. We don't fight for the collective. We fight for Earth. We fight for humanity. And we fight to win. The first shot of the battle came from the Devourers. A massive capital ship fired a beam of concentrated energy at the human defensive line. The blast crossed millions of kilometers in seconds and struck the shield of a human dreadnought. The shield flared bright white, absorbed the energy, and held. The dreadnought didn't even slow down. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Hyan watched the enemy fleet approach. They moved in waves, the smaller warforms in front, the massive capital ships behind. It was a simple tactic, one that had worked for them 6 times before. The small ships would overwhelm the defenders with numbers, while the big ships provided heavy firepower. They're not very creative, Captain Gina observed. Why would they be? This has worked every time. Hyan opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, hold fire. Let them come closer. Wait for range 0. The Devourers pushed forward, their grotesque ships moving faster now, eager for the kill. They had already broadcast their psychological attack, transmitting images of dying species, memories absorbed from their victims. It was meant to terrify, to break the enemy's will before the fighting even started. Instead, General Minho had broadcast humanity's response across all frequencies. It was a recording of human history. Wars, battles, conflicts spanning 10,000 years. Images of warriors from every age, every culture, fighting against impossible odds. And at the end, a simple message in every language the collective knew. We've been doing this since before you learned to speak. Come and try. The Devourer warforms reached the outer defensive line, the ring of dreadnoughts that formed humanity's visible military presence. They opened fire with biological weapons, streams of acid and explosive spores, beams of energy that they had learned from the species they consumed. The human ships took the hits, shields flaring and armor scorching, but holding. Return fire, Hyan ordered. The dreadnoughts unleashed their main weapons. Magnetic accelerator cannons that had been building charge for the last 30 minutes fired solid metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles crossed the distance almost instantly, slamming into Devourer ships with the force of small nuclear weapons. Warforms exploded, their organic hulls unable to withstand the kinetic impact. Even the capital ships staggered as slugs punched through their armor. In the first 10 seconds of direct combat, humanity destroyed over 1,000 enemy vessels, but there were 70,000 more. The Devourer fleet adapted immediately, splitting into smaller groups, trying to surround the human dreadnoughts. They were learning, applying tactics they had absorbed from previous species. It would have worked against the collective's organized military. It didn't work against humans. Now, Hyan said quietly. Captain Saijun heard the signal on the Phantom. His stealth destroyers had been hiding in the radiation belts of Jupiter, waiting in an environment that would kill most galactic species, but only mildly inconvenienced humans. Now they moved, 12 small ships emerging from hiding like sharks from deep water. "Light them up," Saijun ordered. The Phantom fired its weapons at the Devourer capital ships from behind. The shots were precise, targeting the propulsion systems that the enemy thought were protected. 3 massive capital ships lost power, drifting helplessly as their smaller escorts turned to face this new threat. But Saijun was already moving, his ship accelerating away, leading the enemy into another trap. Behind him, more human ships emerged from hiding among Jupiter's moons. The Devourers had thought they were chasing one small ship. Instead, they flew into a crossfire from 300 destroyers. Lieutenant Nari led Valkyrie Squadron into the battle from a completely different angle. Her fighters came from above the orbital plane, diving down at speeds that made her vision blur. They were too small for the Devourers to target effectively, too fast to track. "All wings, arm special weapons," she commanded. Each fighter carried a device that engineer Yuna had designed, a micro-fusion bomb. Small enough to fit on a fighter, but powerful enough to crack a warform's armor. The trick was getting close enough to deliver it. Nari picked her target, a warform the size of a cruiser, covered in weapons and armor plating. She dove straight at it, her fighter's computer screening warnings about collision. At the last possible second, she released the bomb and pulled up hard, her flight suit squeezing her body to keep her from passing out from the acceleration. Behind her, the bomb detonated. The warform came apart in a flash of light and heat. Around her, 35 other pilots were doing the same thing, each taking out a target. The Devourers tried to adapt, tried to target the small, fast-moving fighters, but they were used to fighting large, organized fleets. They didn't know how to deal with individual pilots who flew like they had nothing to lose. "Reform and attack again," Nari ordered, already selecting her next target. In the asteroid belt. Engineer Yuna's railgun platforms opened fire. 5,000 guns spoke as one, firing solid metal slugs at incredible velocities. The math was beautiful and terrible. Each shot carried enough kinetic energy to destroy a small ship. The guns fired every 30 seconds, a constant stream of deadly metal. The Devourers flew into this storm of steel and died in massive numbers. Their organic armor, tough enough to resist energy weapons, couldn't stop solid matter moving at such speeds. Warforms shattered. Capital ships staggered, their hulls punctured in dozens of places. But the Devourers were learning. They began to split their forces, spreading out to make themselves harder targets. They adapted their tactics, using the remains of destroyed ships as shields. They were doing everything they had learned from Six Dead Civilizations. It wasn't enough. The human forces were using tactics the Devourers had never seen. Stealth attacks from hiding. Swarms of individual fighters that ignored formations. Weapons that relied on kinetic energy rather than the energy beams the collective favored. Every advantage the Devourers had gained from consuming other species was useless against Earth's military. Admiral Hyan watched the battle unfold on his screens. The humans were winning, but at a cost. 20 dreadnoughts had been destroyed. Hundreds of smaller ships were gone. Thousands of fighters would never return home. But they were winning. Then the Devourer capital ships did something unexpected. They stopped attacking and began to pulse with strange light. On the Indomitable Science Station, Dr. Taiyang shouted a warning. "Admiral, they're adapting. The capital ships are absorbing energy from their destroyed warforms. They're getting stronger." On the viewing screen, the Devourer capital ships began to change. Their armor grew thicker. Their weapons multiplied. They were doing what they did best, learning and evolving in real time. "They're consolidating," Captain Gina said, her voice tight. "All the mass from the ships we destroyed, they're reclaiming it and rebuilding it into their capital ships. We're not reducing their numbers. We're making them stronger." Fleet Commander Thelanaris looked at the tactical display in horror. This is how they won before. They let us destroy the small ships, then absorbed the remains into the large ships. By the end of each battle, they had fewer but much more powerful vessels. My people discovered this too late. We tried to retreat, but they were too strong by then. Admiral Hyan didn't look worried. He looked satisfied. "Captain Gina, how many capital ships are actively consolidating?" "All of them, sir. 293 surviving capital ships, all pulling in mass from destroyed warforms." "Excellent. They've stopped moving to focus on rebuilding. They're sitting targets." He opened the fleet-wide channel. "All forces, pull back to phase line Gamma. Prepare for final operation. Dr. Taiyang, is Scientist Jiho ready?" "Ready and waiting, sir." "Good." Hyan looked at Thelanaris. "Commander, you said your species tried everything to stop them and failed. There's a reason for that. You were fighting smart. You were trying to be efficient, to minimize losses, to win with tactics and strategy. Is there another way to fight?" "There is." Hyan's expression was cold. "You fight like you're willing to burn down the universe to win. You fight like humans." He touched a control on his chair, opening a channel to a station near Earth's sun. The station was massive, larger than most cities, covered in strange equipment that the Valari had never seen before. "Scientist Jiho, this is Admiral Hyan. You are cleared to fire. Show them why you don't threaten a species that learned to weaponize their own star." In the station, Jiho smiled. He had spent 20 years building this weapon, this thing that every sane scientist had called impossible. He had built it anyway because humans didn't know when to stop, didn't know when something was too dangerous, too risky, too insane to try. "Initiating solar amplification sequence," he said calmly. "Target lock confirmed. Firing in 10 seconds. Around Earth's sun, 1,000 quantum lenses activated. They had been built in secret over decades, positioned in a perfect array. Now they began to focus, to channel, to amplify the sun's energy into something new. A beam of light erupted from the station. It was pure solar fury, concentrated sunlight magnified 1,000,000 times over. It crossed the distance to the battlefield in minutes. A lance of energy so bright that every sensor had to dim or be burned out. The beam struck the Devourer capital ships while they were stationary, while they were focused on rebuilding, while they thought they were safe. Silicon-based Life Co. The battle ended not with a grand finale, but with exhausted silence. The last Devourer warform was destroyed near Saturn's rings, cut apart by concentrated fire from 3 human destroyers. After that, there was nothing left to fight. The enemy that had consumed 6 civilizations had been completely eliminated from humanity's solar system. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Hyan stood looking at the tactical display. It showed the aftermath, debris fields where thousands of ships had died, both human and Devourer. Red markers indicated human casualties. They had lost 3,000 ships. 42,000 people were dead. It was the largest loss of human life in a single battle in 3 centuries. But they had won. Captain Gina was already working on casualty reports and damage assessments. Her hands moved across her controls with practiced efficiency, but Hyan could see the exhaustion in her face. They had all been awake for 36 hours straight. "Captain, take a break. Get some rest. I can finish this first, sir." "That's an order, Captain. Everyone on this bridge, rotate out. 4 hours of rest, then back to work." Fleet Commander Thelanaris still stood on the bridge, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. He had watched the entire battle, had seen things he couldn't quite process. His species had fought the Devourers for months and lost. Humanity had fought them for 18 hours and won. "I don't understand," the alien said quietly. "Your numbers were smaller. Your ships took terrible damage. Yet you won so completely. How?" Hyan sat down in his command chair, feeling the weight of exhaustion settling into his bones. "Because we weren't fighting to minimize losses, Commander. We were fighting to win. Every human in this battle knew they might die. They accepted that risk. Can you say the same about your people?" Thelanaris thought about the Valari military, about officers who calculated acceptable losses and retreat conditions before every battle. "No, we fought to survive with minimum casualties. We tried to be rational, and that's why you lost. The Devourers adapt to rational tactics because they've seen them before. But humans?" Hyan smiled tiredly. "We'll fly a bomb into an enemy capital ship, if that's what it takes. We'll sit in lethal radiation to set an ambush. We'll build a weapon so dangerous that using it could blow up our own sun, just to have it as an option. We don't fight rationally. We fight to win." The alien commander looked at the debris field on the screen. "Your species is terrifying. Yes, now you understand why the collective quarantined us." 3 days later, representatives from the collective arrived at Earth. Their ship was elegant and beautiful, designed more for diplomacy than war. It stopped at the edge of the solar system and waited for permission to approach. That was new. Before the battle, they would have simply entered without asking. Ambassador Sora met them in orbit above Earth, in a space station that had been quickly converted from a weapons platform back to its civilian disguise. The collective's delegation consisted of 7 beings from different species, each one a high-ranking diplomat from their respective governments. They sat across from Sora in the conference room, trying not to look nervous. Through the windows, they could see human warships patrolling nearby, ships that had just destroyed the Devourers. "Ambassador Sora," the lead diplomat said, a tall being with silver skin. "On behalf of the collective, I want to express our gratitude for defending the Valari refugees. Your actions saved 10,000 ships and 3 million lives." "We didn't do it for gratitude," Sora replied evenly. "We did it because they were in our territory and something was attacking them. That's what any decent species would do." The diplomat shifted uncomfortably. "Yes, well, the collective has been discussing Earth's status. In light of recent events, we would like to formally invite humanity to join the collective as a full member species." "How generous," Sora said, her voice cold. 300 years ago, you tested us and found us wanting. You called us too primitive, too violent, too dangerous. Now you want us to join? What changed?" Another diplomat, this one looking like a giant insect, spoke up. "We were wrong about humanity. We see that now. Your technology, your military capability, your tactical genius, all of it proves you're more advanced than we thought." "No," Sora leaned forward. "You were right the first time. We are violent. We are dangerous. Nothing about that has changed. What changed is that now you need us. The Devourers are still out there, and you've realized that you can't stop them alone. You need humanity's primitive violence to survive." The silence in the room was heavy. Finally, the silver-skinned diplomat spoke. "You're correct. We do need your help. The Devourer threat is larger than we told you. They've consumed 6 species completely and are attacking 4 more. We estimate another 12 species will fall in the next 5 years unless something changes. And you want humanity to be that change? Yes. Sora stood and walked to the window, looking at Earth below. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Humanity will help defend the galaxy. We'll fight the Devourers. We'll share our technology and tactics, but not as members of the collective. We'll do it as an independent power. That's not how the collective works. That's how it works now. Sora's voice was firm. You spent 3 centuries telling us we weren't good enough to join your club. Fine. We built our own club. Now we're inviting you to join us. Under our terms. General Minho appeared on a screen in the conference room, broadcasting from Earth. We're calling it the Defense Alliance. Any species that wants protection from the Devourers is welcome. But there are rules. First, no more arrogance. No more ranking species by how civilized they are. Second, full technology sharing. No more hoarding knowledge. Third, unified military command. In battle, all forces answer to one authority. And who would that authority be? The insect diplomat asked, though they already knew the answer. Humanity, Minho said simply. We've proven we know how to win. If you want to survive, you follow our lead. The collective diplomats looked at each other. They were used to being in charge, used to making demands rather than following them. But they had watched the battle recordings. They had seen what humanity could do. And they were afraid of what might happen if they said no. We'll need to discuss this with our governments, the silver diplomat said. Take your time, Sora replied. But not too much time. The Devourers won't wait for you to make up your minds. On Mars, Lieutenant Nari was in the hospital, recovering from injuries she'd received when her fighter took damage during the battle. She had managed to eject and was rescued, but she had broken ribs and a concussion. Dr. Taiyang was checking on all the wounded, moving from bed to bed. How are you feeling, Lieutenant? He asked. Like I got hit by a moon? She said with a weak smile. But I'm alive. That's more than I expected. You did good work up there. All of you did. Doctor, I've been thinking. Those things, the Devourers, there are more of them out there, aren't there? Taiyang sat down next to her bed. Yes, a lot more. The ones we fought were just an advance force. So we'll have to fight them again. Probably. Nari looked at the ceiling. I joined the military 10 years ago. We trained and trained, but it was all simulations. I never thought I'd actually fight a real battle. And now that I have... She paused. Now that I have, I understand why humans are so good at war. It's because we're so bad at giving up. Taiyang smiled. That's a good way to put it. Across the solar system, humanity was already rebuilding. The shipyards on Mars were working at full capacity, building replacement vessels. Engineer Yuna was designing new weapons based on what they had learned from the battle. Scientists like Jiho were improving the solar weapon, making it faster to deploy and more powerful. Captain Saijun and his surviving stealth. Ship crews were already planning their next missions. They had proven that small, fast ships could make a huge difference. Now they were thinking about taking the fight to the enemy, finding out where the Devourers came from. In the asteroid belt, automated systems were rebuilding the railgun platforms that have been destroyed. Within a month, they would be back to full strength. Within a year, there would be twice as many. Earth wasn't just recovering from the battle. It was preparing for the next one. 6 months later, Admiral Hyan stood on the bridge of a new ship. The U's Indomitable had survived the battle, but was badly damaged. While it was being repaired, he had been given command of the newest dreadnought in the fleet, the Avalanche. It was even larger than his old ship, armed with the latest weapons technology. Captain Gina was with him, promoted to first officer. They were leading a fleet of 200 ships on humanity's first deep space mission beyond the solar system. Their objective: Find the Devour home territory and destroy it. Are you nervous? Gina asked. Terrified, Hyan admitted. We're leaving the solar system for the first time in 3 centuries. We're going into unknown space to fight an enemy that's destroyed entire civilizations. Of course, I'm nervous, but you're going anyway. That's what humans do. We're afraid, but we go anyway. Behind them, the rest of the fleet was forming up. There were human ships, yes, but also volunteers from other species. The Valari had sent 50 vessels, commanded by Thalanorus. 5 other species had contributed ships as well. The Defense Alliance was growing. General Minho's face appeared on the communication screen. Ed,